not that you shouldn't always say your opinion, it's just that you should pick your times. So that's what I try to work on.
Who else? Mariel?
I'm just finding that with age, a lot of different circumstances happen to you. You know, in my profession, I could talk about justice and all that stuff. But right now, I'm dealing with talking to doctor's offices, calling Walgreens, doing a lot of stuff that has to do with medical conditions. And the way I can talk to people just on those kind of lines and, you know that the person I'm talking to probably has no control over the fact that you haven't gotten your medication or whatever it is. And I'm finding that I really have to just work on that, John said, not saying some of the stuff I'd like to say, and just deal with it. You know, just accept that this is the way it is. And I'm finding that it just makes me feel better. That's about all I can do at this stage in my life. You know, I can't be out there protesting, and I can't do some of the stuff I used to do, which is hard for me, because that's really what I did a lot of in my younger years. So I'm dealing with what I have now, and I think just what John said, registered. I think sometimes about, okay, I'd like to say this, but I'm really not going to say it, you know, and that's just treating people with consideration and in your everyday life that I'm finding, you know, I have to think about. But,
Of course, a lot depends on whether you know whom you're talking to or if it's strangers. If it's strangers on the road or on the street, you have concerns for safety. All right, who AJ?
Just what John said and what Mary Ann said too. You know, a lot of times when we get caught in those phone traps conversations, or even face-to-face occasionally nowadays at a store, I'll sometimes say, hey, I'm controlling my thing, you know, just not to get mad at the person. I'll just say, you know, I know this isn't you that's doing this right here. There's obviously something going on here, but I'm frustrated. I'll try to explain it. I like that serenity for her. Actually, it takes less than 10 seconds to do it. But if I start getting into the Hail Mary, usually my eyes are glazing over and it's time to step back. And real quick, going back a little bit to where we get some of our feelings for justice and compassion and stuff, my family moved to Broward County to Fort Lauderdale when I was 3 or 4 years old back in the 50s. And my dad was in the trades. He was a union painter. And I remember him coming home the first time he heard a black man. Of course, back in those days, we would say a colored person. But first time he had heard the black man being referred to as boy. And he came home with tears in his eye. And he told me, he said, you never, ever, ever call a man who works a boy. You know, and of course we would extrapolate that to people around us. Yeah. But I remember that moved me really heavy. And that was a thing for me. I had a tear in my eye just thinking about it.
Who else? Tim?
So in the work that I do for couples a lot, one of the things I try to do is to ask them to be able to state the other person's values, feelings, and priorities. And helping them teach to do that without judgment. And I find the couples that can do that better. The ones that don't. So being able to understand my own values and being able to say for priorities and so forth and see somebody else's and say they're different. It's really going to be key to be able to understand that their values are going to be different and to be able to accept that without judgment is really where I find passion.
Me interject one more thing. What do I have the biggest problem with as I get older? Patience.
Of course, you've got David, the teacher. He's very patient.
But I have a sister that's not.
Tia, I hope you don't watch this service. So many memories. I've asked you where you were. I'm thinking as you're talking about another time the police came to my house. I was a little kid. A girl and I were playing out front, She was hit by a car, but not hurt a lot. The police came, and the police came to my mother and asked if she thought I had intentionally chased her out into front of the car. I think I was 7. I had to have been only 7 or so, and I didn't know what to do or say. Oh my, run-ins with the wall. That could be another segment. I could share run-ins with the wall.
Did you?
Did I what? Sorry. Well, these are lifelong goals. Justice, equity, compassion in personal relations. That's the hardest place, I think, to apply them. The hardest place to be patient is somebody you've been with almost from birth, like a sibling. We've talked about that. You get your whole life to work on that, and some of us need it. In general, in society, we don't want people to be treated the way we're seeing them treated, and we have to work together on how to try to affect change. It seems slow coming. Any last thoughts or concluding? Yes.
I just wanted to add what Judith has said. I have a good guy friend for a few years now that I enjoy having my children around because he's such a nature lover. And I think it's so important for kids and people to really appreciate beings and, you know, our whole universe. So you see it down here with, you know, the sandhill cranes and people being impatient and getting ahead. And, you know, my kids really appreciate animals a lot, and I attribute a lot of that to me and him also. But I think that's really important for our kiddos to be raised with that, because I think that just, you know, you see that in adult life and the impatience.
You're really fortunate if you have children, if they grow up and you get to a point where you see each other as individuals in your own right and their own right, and not just an extension of you or what you do for them or they for you. Some families never get to that point. I know that for a fact. But some do. It's a beautiful thing to see someone you've created become their own person and share that with you unspokenly. It doesn't have to be spoken. Well, thank you for helping this sermon to wrap up. And next week it's on another principle, and we'll see where that goes. The order calls for extinguishing the candle. So go in peace and work on all the things we said we're working on. You can remember. Not a good idea, Bob. Refreshment time.